We've been so looking forward to this today. So thank you, Adam, for joining us. It's really my great pleasure to welcome the author of Positive Leadership, Adam Seaman, to join us today to discuss positive leadership and thriving. Adam is an organizational development consultant and executive coach. He has worked with a wide variety of organizations from both the public and private sectors and employees at all levels. As a Gallup certified coach, he developed the talent to strength application method of the Strengths Finders assessment to provide his clients with powerfully actionable insights. He also facilitates the Youth Philanthropy Initiative, an intensive 3-year program that teaches high school students the value of leadership and philanthropy in their communities. In addition to all of this, he developed the Positive Leadership Model. And it's a curriculum currently used in community leadership programs all across the United States, including ours, and the basis for this Thrive online class. So we are really excited to have him join us today to share his insights and share a little bit about positive leadership and thriving. So Adam, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure and absolutely delighted to see you all. And I want to talk a little bit. I have a little bit of time to talk through some things. So I've been given the opportunity to have wide open conversation about the book and any topics related to it. And what I really want to do is talk about this idea of thriving and the relationship between leadership and actually how it produces thriving. So I think to start, I maybe want to share an idea that's been helpful for me and I think is needed for our times. And it's about our relationship to perfectionism. And I am not a perfectionist. I never would have thought of myself as a perfectionist. I think of perfectionism as something other than me because nothing in my life is perfect. And yet I still see plenty of evidence of perfectionism in my life. The expectation that if something's not perfect, then I'm going to be upset, that it's not right, that it's not where it needs to be, and I can't be satisfied. And perfection is foisted on us and hoisted on us by all aspects of our society in terms of what does success look like, and I don't know what the ideal person should be, what is beauty or health or all of these things. So we do get a lot of these messages around perfectionism, and that anything short of that is just not acceptable. And we somehow internalize this message in different ways. And so I want to refer to the great psychologist Carl Jung on this topic regarding perfectionism, because he found that in his work with clients, many of the neuroses he was dealing with stemmed from some sense of perfection that his clients were pursuing or wanting or expecting from themselves or from life. And what he wanted to say, the point he tried to make to his clients is that before anything can be perfect, it must be complete. You can't have perfection without completion. So unless something is complete, then don't even worry about perfection. Are you complete? Are you a complete person? Is your life complete? And so if not, then just focus on completion and what does that look like for you? And I know that's a weird question. Like, what would that look like? What would being a complete person look like for you? Well, it's a great thing to ask yourself and to bother yourself with and to explore. So then I just want to take it one step further, and I want to relate it to leadership, is that in order for us to even have completion, we must have progression. So I'm just taking it once, I'm just building off of the great Carl Jung. I'm just saying, if he's saying, well, before you can have perfection, you must have completion, then I'm saying, okay, before you can have completion, you must have adequate progression. And so that's what I mean by positive in positive leadership. I don't necessarily mean everything will feel positive, because we won't always feel positive emotions. And in fact, we shouldn't. And we need to use negative emotions to help inform us, what I call contrast. Contrast is what evokes negative emotions. We use that. We use those negative emotions to say, okay, not as a dead end of this, oh, this is terrible, but as a way to say, if this is what I don't want, if this is what is not working for me, then okay, what does that tell me I do want? What do I want less of, and what do I want more of? It's very useful to do that, and that will lead to progression. And that's what we're going for, is progression. And I think thriving and progression are synonymous. So the role of leadership is to be an agent of progression, meaningful progression. Progression to what? Well, I'm vague on this. I say progression toward the good. And that's going to vary from situation to situation. But progression toward the good. In your life, what would progression toward the good look like? In your work team, on your team, what would growth look like? What would success look like? In fact, in order for us to even answer the question about what progression, what are we talking about? Progression and what? We have to choose our focus. So that is the first step. And I'm someone who doesn't like to do that. I'm very commitment phobic, so I don't like to choose a focus. But I know, but even I know that you cannot make progress unless we know exactly what it is we're talking about. So let's have a focus. So you individually lock in your focus if it's an individual thing that you're wanting to make progress on in your life. If it's something in cooperation with other people, then it's a great opportunity to clarify what is the focus? What are we talking about? Right there is where alignment happens or contrast happens in that moment. What are you focused on? Okay, and what am I focused on? And are they the same thing? Like in a marriage. All right, when we say our marriage, what do you mean? What do you mean? What is your focus when you talk about marriage? And what is my focus? And do they line up? Because if they don't, then anytime we talk about marriage, then we're meaning different things. Or, substitute marriage for this project or whatever. So progress can't happen unless there's a focus. Once the focus is clear, then we have to ask a question. And it's the second capacity of positive leadership. So it's a question of purpose. Why? Why does this focus matter? And I don't ask it in a way to say, well, and I don't mean it in a snarky way, like, well, why does it matter? I mean it in a genuine, authentic inquiry. Why does this matter? And let's talk about it if it involves other people so we're clear. Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to you? What we're evoking when we have a clear focus and we know why it matters, I call that purpose. Instead of just saying, what's your purpose? Because that's a hard question to answer sometimes. I mean, I feel daunted when they're like, what's the purpose? I'm like, I don't know. But if you say, well, what's the focus? I'm like, oh, yeah, the focus is this. And then if you were to then say, and why does this focus matter? I'm like, oh, well, because of this and because of this. Maybe there's 2 or 3 reasons why the focus matters. Okay, great. Now we got that clear. What do we do next? We answer the question, well, what would thriving look like for our focus? If it matters. If it doesn't matter, we can save ourselves time and go, right, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. But if it matters, then what would thriving look like for it? Because that's what I know to be true about people. The universal truth I believe about people, and it's hard to find these, I believe that my candidate for universal truth would be this about people. If I know what you care about, then I know what you want for it. If I know what you care about, I know what you want is growth or success or happiness for that thing, well-being. These are all adjectives to describe what? Thriving. So we want to move toward thriving. Thriving is the state toward which we constantly want to move in our lives. And that's as individuals. As leaders, what we want is we want to move our communities toward thriving. And in order to do that, we have to answer the question, what is the focus and why does it matter? And once we know that, that's purpose, then we want to answer the O, if you remember POM. outcomes. We want to answer the outcomes. Once we know the focus and why it matters, what's our outcomes? What would thriving look like? Thriving is, by the way, I call it the universal outcome. So because of what I said, it's universal. I don't care your gender, your age, or whatever, your background. If I know what you care about, I know what you want for it. The universal outcome is thriving, which means growth, success. It comes from the Norse for to grasp, for oneself. Thriving means to grasp for oneself. That's very instructive because it's not about waiting. We have a word for waiting for the things we want. Waiting for the things we want is happiness. You know the word happenstance, haphazard. It means kind of luck. It means things just worked out. Happiness. Things worked out the way we wanted them to, so we should be what? We should be happy. Thriving isn't waiting. Thriving is seizing. So identifying your focus, stating why it matters, and then doing what? Waiting for something? No. We have to. Thriving does not occur magically. Thriving is the result. It's a result. It will either result or not result if the factors are right. Thriving is the result of having the right factors aligned in the right way. What factors? Well, it depends. What's our focus? Is our focus a garden? Then what are our factors necessary for thriving? Water, soil, sunlight, freedom from pests. I'm a doctor and I want to know what thriving is for my patient. Well, where's your patient? Well, my patient's fine. Okay, well then thriving would look like sustained and maybe improved health. No, my patient is, has a serious illness. Thriving would look very different then. Very different. So it's situational. We have to know what we're talking about, lock in our focus, state why it matters, and then we can start to say, okay, then what are the factors necessary? And once we know the factors that are necessary for thriving, we can begin working on each of those factors. In order for my relationship to thrive, I need trust, I need communication, I need quality time, I need whatever. And then look, each one of those is a factor necessary for thriving. And then you know where your resources should go. Your resources should go towards these methods. This is the M in POM. We come up with methods last because we don't know what methods to use. And if we use the wrong methods, we will use up our resources. When I think of method, I think of resources spent. And sometimes resources spent are great. What are the conditions under which resources spent are great? The condition when resources spending is great is when you've produced a lot of the outcomes you want. Then it's worth spending your resources. You know when spending your resources is bad? When you're getting no outcomes. You spend all your resources are getting depleted, but you're not getting the outcomes you want. You're not moving the needle, but yet you've depleted your resources. That's a bad method. So this begins to help us think about how to spend our resources, which is the way I define engagement. The word engagement is a word we use a lot in the workplace, generally for meaning something like a positive attitude or being invested or something. And that's true. I'm not knocking that. That's true. But there's an added meaning. It's how you spend resources. The word gauge in engagement, the word gauge, the root word, means to spend. To pledge. I pledge, like when you get engaged for something. I pledge my everything to you, spouse. That's what engagement is. So you're pledging what? Resources. And if you've spent your resources on too many things, like you ever have people on your team that are spread way too thin that they don't have time to make your meetings or give attention to the things you care about, it's because they're not engaged or they've already spent whatever their resources. They've already committed or pledged their resources elsewhere. And maybe you have things on your plate that you're not really, doing much with, or you're not too engaged, your resources are spent on other things. So we need to think about, how do we recapture resources and reinvest them wisely? And that's what I think leadership is about too. So employing this framework, the POM framework, or these principles of thriving, alignment, and engagement. So that's my general thoughts. I have a lot more I can say, but I think I want to stop there and just see any thoughts, questions, reactions from anybody. And I'm sure my answers can be long. So, we got more content to come, but I would rather maybe be led by any thoughts or questions you guys have, or reactions to anything I've said. And you're free to accept, reject, or adapt anything I said. Those are just my opinions. So you get to decide. All right.
Yeah, go ahead. Anyone ask a question, or if you want to put it in chat and we can relay it to Adam, and we can just roll right into question and answers now. Thanks. We have the Zoom awkward silence, but I'm sure it's just people unmuting themselves.
Hi, good morning, Adam. I'm Nicole. I have a question. So I wonder, kind of playing along with this, where you just wrapped up there, engagement and resources. And, I'm sure we've all had these projects, and I think I'm at a place in a project where we have depleted all of our resources and we're tapped out. And how do you regain that engagement and replenish your, your board, so to speak? How do you regenerate that?
That's such an important question. I deal with this a lot too. Like, I'm working with, in one of my youth groups, usually my cohorts, they're 3 years long. The cohorts really are almost always positive, but I have one experience that isn't so, and I see it happening. And what do you do? So, first, I don't know if that's the best answer, but then I'm still going to take a stab at it. It's very situational, but what I'm looking to do in these situations is I'm looking to stop the negative momentum. So what does that look like? It might mean, in this case, since it's a group, it might mean a change in membership. We might need a change in membership. Why? Because from your question, I took you might be referring to a board, maybe a nonprofit board. So that might be right or wrong. I'll just say, when a board owns the organization on behalf of the community, so it's no joking matter. And so what I'm looking for are fans on 3. Fans on 1 are why this is happening, in my opinion. You come back to me, Nicole, and comment. But what happens is the people who are expected to be the owners, they're acting like renters. And so their fans are on 1. And what does that mean? When I was board president of a nonprofit, I wanted to do a good job, but we had several board members that didn't even show up to meetings. And I'm like, well, what does that signal to everybody else, right? Because the way I think of it is, leaders create the culture, and then culture becomes the leader. And we had a culture of minimal engagement, minimal investment of resources into our organization. So I thought of it, well, what if I depersonalize this? Because I'm not a conflict-oriented person, but I don't want fans, I don't want unengaged people around. So I said, all right, I'm not going to make it personal. I'm going to imagine my board, they're fans. They're like desktop fans. So they're like fans on 1, fan on 2, or fan on 3. There's just these different fan ratings. So what I'm looking for is fans on 3. And if someone's a fan on 1, then I want them out of the picture. So I asked for my board seats back. So let me just pause real quick, Nicole, and see if that's kind of in the direction of where you're at.
That's exactly in the direction I'm at.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so then I start to define fan on 1 behavior, fan on 2 behavior, fan on 3 behavior. And then what would that look like? And then I would just go to talk to those people who are fans on 1, and without it being conflicting or confrontational or anything, just say, hey, if you want to come back later, feel free, but I really need an engaged board, because here's where I'm trying to go, and I'm asking for your seat back, and, just try to do it in a way that helps them save face. but then, be finding the people that you want to bring in that do have that energy. So that to me is what is for where I'm looking. I'm looking for fans on 3, and I'm looking to just get rid of fans on 1. And I will tell you, I'll take a little handful of fans on 3 against a whole bunch of fans on 1. To make progress, I just need a few fans on 3. And I just need the fans on 1 out of the way. And someone might say, well, what's so bad about a fan on 1? At least there's a body count. At least there's somebody there. At least there's hands or whatever. I'm like, no, because what it does is it weakens the commitment of my fans on 3. It says, wow, we'll accept anybody's membership here and give you equal credit or standing in this community, regardless of your engagement level. And I don't think that's healthy. I guess if I'm going to say it, I guess I believe in a little bit of, that stone soup. You got to bring a little something if you want to get a little something. And so I want fans on 3 in my organizations, and fans on 3 want fans on 3 around them too. So that's where my focus is. But where does our attention usually go? To the fans on 1, and then our resources are depleted, going to someone who's not really even investing resources of their own. So don't invest in the fans on 1, invest in the fans on 3. And I know there's more to it than that, but because I also think it's about getting energy around a common shared vision, and that people contribute toward that. But the first thing I think is just stop the decline, stabilize, and then move forward. All right, I'll stop there. See, I can tell you my answers get a little long-winded, so that's why I extended Q&A time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. I didn't see any of the comments in chat. Good. Thriving and happiness. Yeah, that was good for me too to hear as well. So I picked that up along the way and passed that along. I'm glad. Yeah, I do. I think it's important to define our key words. So this way it's about alignment, right? And that's what I think communication is for. I have a class that I'm developing now, and it's called Communication for Alignment. Because that's what I believe communication is meant to be. It's a tool to create alignment. And so then it tells me if I've communicated effectively or not. See, I define things as activities, like leadership is an activity. Well, I define communication as an activity. And how do you know how well you're doing as an activity? By the results you're able to produce. So in my communication as an activity, do I produce more alignment when I communicate? Or do I create more contrast when I communicate? A lot of discussion about inspiring others to engage toward thriving. What should leaders do if their teams have disparate ideas of thriving or are uninterested in engagement? I know, right? So the answer is, I don't know. I know what I would do. I'd be like, you can't be at my party, because we're here to produce outcomes. I'm as the manager of this team, I'm expected to produce outcomes. And I'm only given a certain amount of resources with which to do it. You're one of them. You're one of my resources. And you don't even seem to care. You don't seem, your mind is elsewhere. And it's not a bad thing to be a fan on 1. It's not a personal thing. It's not personal at all. It's actually purely objective. If you're a fan on 1, be a fan on 1, just not here. That's not an agreement I have. The agreement is you don't get to be a fan on. I never said you could be here and be a fan on 1. So now we're talking about it. You can't. You could move up. Let's get you to a fan on 2. What would that look like? We'll get you to a fan on 2 if you promise me we're going to go on our way to 3. And also, I want to know, if you're not a fan on 3, why? I just assume people should be. Why? No one's holding a gun to anybody's head on these things where you work and all this. So you have the law of 2 feet. You can go anywhere you want. So then why are you here? Let me help you get to where you could be a fan on 3. What are you passionate about? I'll help you get there. But you can't stay here. It just won't work. I'm out of resources. I can't get to where I'm at. It's like a runway, and you only have so much amount of runway before you are allowed to take off. If you can't take off and you run out of runway, well, yeah, you lost. Game over. You should be fired as the manager. No offense. Right? You should be fired. No offense. But yeah, it just means you didn't get, and it's tough because we don't want to be mean. It's not mean to ask for performance. Let's talk about performance before you even join the team. Let me find out what you mean by performance. because I'm a performance manager. I need performance. I need three things. I'm working on these values with the client. So I need safety. Your employees need to feel safe from bullying, safe from discrimination, safe from failure. If people should be allowed to fail and learn and make mistakes. So safety. If you have safety, then you can get the second thing, growth. We should be allowed to grow. Remember my thing about perfection that I started with? It's, get rid of the perfection mindset. It's a growth mindset. It's a progression mindset. And so we need to progress toward what? Performance. That's the third thing. These are the three values I'm working on with the client. Safety, and then growth, and growth toward performance. And performance is ultimately what we're wanting. So I don't know if any of that's helpful. All right, let's see. Something about defining positive. Let's see. Yeah, positive as movement, as a movement rather than an emotion. Yes, it's progression toward thriving or moving in a positive direction. If you're moving in the opposite towards suffering, that's negative, right? We're moving in a negative direction. And we want positive leadership, not negative leadership. I hope if we vote for our leaders, I hope we're asking for positive leadership. So let's see. Great point, Jessica. Yes, I really appreciated the distinction between authenticity and sincerity. I know, I learned that too as well. Again, something else that helped me get clear. I should clarify. All this stuff that I'm developing is for me. It's not for you, it's for me. And because it's what I need to help get me through the obstacle course of reality. And so having that distinctions, like what is sincerity? And all my life I've been sincere, but I haven't been authentic. And that's the difference. And it helps me relate to other people too, to go, all right, they're sincere. They may not be authentic yet. And actually, in my experience, they're probably not. Self-realization is at the core of my work. I don't come out and just say it, except I did just now. But for me, it's about realizing the true self in the way that Maslow meant it when he talked about self-realization, he called it self-actualization. And I mean self-realization in a spiritual sense too, of realizing we're more than what we seem. But those things aren't always, I don't talk about that stuff. My work is sort of a Trojan horse for that stuff, if I'm going to tell you all my secrets. All right, let's see. Anything else? Any other questions or comments, or am I out of time? I think, I got one more minute. Look at me, staying on time. And
You actually have until 9. You have 10 more minutes because we're just now rolling into question and answers. So you're all good.
Okay. Any other, or maybe you don't, maybe they're sick of maybe they're sick of the
No,
answers.
this is awesome. I think we're getting so much from this. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm having a blast. This is easy.
Any burning questions?
Yeah, or reactions too. Just reactions to any of this, because I'd like to hear what you all think. And if you're buying it, you know what I mean? Because like I said, this is stuff that helps me figure out how to navigate what I call the spanking machine of life. I don't know why I call it that, but I don't, but it's like, these are tools meant to help me. So I'd love to hear your reactions to it.
Well, and maybe we have a few alumni from our program that are on the call, and they've gone through positive leadership before, but now this is with the aligning engagement, the whole thriving shift. It's not really a shift, but like focus is a little bit different. So maybe alumni, if you have any comments or questions.
Katie, it's Chad. I'd like to say thanks to, Adam. It's been great because going through the class, you got to read the book and kind of let it soak in. And this thriving portion in this class that we've been taking currently has helped kind of just drive it home and make you get rejuvenated, re-energized to keep going and keep the movement going. I think it keeps myself rejuvenated as a manager, and it helps to pass along to the people that are on your team and in your group, and just keep everybody motivated. So thank you, and excellent job.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. And yes, to be clear, to the comment Jason just made as well, and to your comment, Chad, is that to me, leadership is not about authority, and it's not about being at the front of the room. It's not about egos and status. I think leadership is what we should be doing in our personal lives. I mean, in leading, moving things in the positive direction. You should be, moving things, progressing toward thriving in your personal life using these exact same principles, creating thriving for the people around you, your people, your community. And then if you want to do it for work, let them have some of it too. I think it's hugely important to distinguish between authority and leadership. What we've been talking about, and anybody who wants to join me in this, please help me. I'd love to just collect research articles that involve subjects that were studied to produce leadership findings. And here's what I promise, almost 100% of the time, is that when you look at who they are studying managers, executives, sports coaches, military officers, school principals. All their sole qualification for being in the study is they hold a position of authority. And so whatever findings are produced from that study, I don't know what they're studying. They're calling it leadership, but from the looks of it, they're studying authority. And that's okay. I believe authority is important and necessary. I don't believe everybody should have it, though. But I do believe that everybody should develop in the activity of leadership the ability to identify what thriving looks like, to align the factors necessary for thriving, and then to invest the resources into those factors, or now said in reverse order, to engage oneself and others. This is my definition of leadership. To engage, it's the activity of engaging oneself and others. To identify the factors, to align the factors necessary for thriving. That's the definition for me of leadership. The activity of engaging oneself and others, but self first. To do what? To align the factors, whatever those factors are that are necessary for thriving, that's what we're engaging our resources toward. If our resources are going to anything other than those factors necessary for thriving, let's talk about it. Why? It's a very logical way of thinking. And if we can get everybody on a team thinking this way, we can align better and faster.
And Adam, I think you hit it right. I think if you focused on that, for me, it was focused on home first and get your own home life squared away. And that transitions into being authentic at work. And when people see that you're authentic, they buy into the goal, they buy into the mission, and it keeps everybody motivated. So again, kudos. I know I've asked people to read your book here at work, and we share a lot of the stuff. So again, excellent job. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. We got a few more minutes. Yeah. Wendy, did you have one? Did you put, oh no, it's just like, okay, good. All right.
Let's see, I think Emma has a comment.
Good.
What are some good strategies to build community and move our communities toward thriving when the individuals in our community may have diverse abilities that can also affect performance?
This one I really, really don't know. Let's open it up. What do you guys think? What might be some good strategies for building community or moving communities toward thriving when everyone not everyone in the community, everyone is differently abled. Everyone has different abilities that would affect performance, limitations. First, I think I love Chad using the word authenticity. Let's start there. Let's use that capacity right there. And let's be advocates for reality, which also circles to reason too. What's the situation here? Great. All right. Now, based on that, what's our purpose as a community? What is our purpose? All right. And then based on that, what would thriving look like related to our purpose? Maybe. So I'm saying engage in the dialogue with people around these things. I don't know if that's helping, Emma, but that's the collective answers I got from the group so far. So working out so far. Yeah.
Is in order to be a community, there's going to be different people, different beliefs. You have to find at least one thing that everybody is going to agree on, And that's where you're going to build from. So everybody else gets it that, oh, we have this one thing in common. We can relate at least to that one thing.
Excellent.
All right, let's see. And does Debbie here have a comment? Let's
I see my P didn't type. Sorry about that. Proper supports.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. What are the supports that are needed? There's this major telescope that collapsed in Puerto Rico that has just been such a huge part of their culture there, and such an important part of the island, and it just collapsed because one of the supporting cables collapsed, and it's a huge loss for science and the community there. But also, let's think in reverse. Maybe what would broaden and build look like? And that would be another thing for all the situations you guys mentioned regarding the last one with people with different abilities, or regarding board and disengagement. Let's think in terms of how can we broaden and build, And this is a strengths-based approach then, because you're broadening and building. And this is kind of a definition of strength, having a broader, more developed kind of platform, So use that as a strategy. It's not a perfection strategy, which is we got to get it great overnight. It's a progression strategy, broaden and build. And then in your conversation with your communities, listen and identify the key factors for yourself. Identify what thriving looks like for the people in your community, and then what are the key factors. So this is, again, my retro answer now that having thought through it a little bit more to some of those other questions of how would you deal with this? Apply the steps. What is our focus and why does it matter? What would thriving look like for our focus? And then what are the factors necessary to achieve our vision for thriving? And then how do we engage our resources to align those factors? That's a mic drop and a Salt Bay and every meme imaginable.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you, Adam. We have just about a minute left. I don't know. We want to just leave it there. That's
yeah. Before I say something stupid, I usually every 5 minutes, I'm due for quite some, whoppers. But let me get out of here before it's too late, especially if you're recording all this.
Oh my goodness. No, this has been so useful, and just really pulling it together. And we really appreciate using this curriculum in our community leadership program. And we're just thrilled that we were able to provide it in this format. Thank you for your support in that, Adam, because I think it's really practical and you can just put it to use right away. And I know we've been using this since I think 2013, and just exposing more people, and just as a reminder too to our alumni, I think it's just been very beneficial. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, and thank you all in advance for the thriving that you can help to create, that you're going to produce for people. So that's what it's about, and that's what we can do. What can we do? That engage oneself and others to align the factors necessary for thriving in your communities. Take care, everybody. Reach out anytime you guys have questions. Thanks.
Really appreciate it, Adam. Thank you so much.